Hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. You have reached Science, Saturday Science Chats. Hey, you have reached Saturday Science Chats. There are holidays, I think, this weekend. For those people who have those holidays, want to wish you all a nice holiday weekend. And also, we are going to be talking today about our book, and this is sponsored by the John Chappell Philosophy Society and Dissident Science. I want to thank everybody who subscribes and likes these channels. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on YouTube and or Facebook. And thanks so much. But remember, hit that subscribe and like button when you can, because that really helps us out a lot. Today we're going to be talking about the CNPS book, what goes in and what stays out. We'll talk a little bit about it if you're not familiar with this, but the idea here, of course, is to put together the best works and best arguments of our group that have been putting these arguments together for a number of decades. So this is, I think, going to be a really great project. It's very easy for us to do worldwide now with the ability to do editing. We'll talk about that today, but that's our subject for today. So don't go away. What are we going to put in it? Are we going to leave you out? No, I'm just kidding. That's what people are. Now, there's some people also are worried about who we put in. Oh, don't put in so-and-so. But we'll talk all about that. Obviously, this is a group effort. So our Saturday chat format, so it's every other Saturday. It's myself and my Dissident Science channel. And we talk more about general subjects. In this case, it is a general subject about all the things that our critical thinkers have done outside of mainstream in a lot of the areas that we all love. And then on the other Saturdays, we have the CNPS. We have more in-depth topics led by Ian Cohen. So it's really check that out. That's only broadcast on the CNPS channel. So you want to go to the Chappell Natural Philosophy Society on YouTube, and you'll find that we have a channel there, and you can subscribe to that. Also, our Facebook, because we do live to Facebook, the CNPS Facebook and YouTube channel, and of course live to Dissident Science. Of course, we do have websites, so if you are new, you can check us out. If you want to join in our community, it's at naturalphilosophy.org. It's kind of like a Facebook community where you can talk about any of the topics you want that are taboo, probably anywhere else. You know, like, oh, the Big Bang's wrong, or relativity is wrong, or any kind of other problems. Of course, there's lots of problems in mainstream science. And if you want to look at and read about it in a more casual way, in a more magazine type way, our online critical thinker magazine is at beyondmainstream.org. And you can check it out, and you can find out all the scientists who are working on outside the mainstream. And that's something that you won't find anywhere else. So check that out. And I'm sorry. And we also have our wiki, which has over 10,000 pages of scientists and their work. A lot of abstracts, a lot of full papers, a lot of interesting information. So you can check that out. Memberships, they start at monthly $5, go up to $50. You can subscribe to your membership online. We have an automatic system, and or you can do it annually, and as little as $35. That's our lowest, and of course it goes up from there. And we also accept donations. We do have a fund drive at the end of the year, but we really rely during the year on all of our members. It costs almost $3,000 for us to run, all on the servers that we need, all the software. You have to rent out all the things. We got even an expense to keep us from being hacked. It's just a wild world out there. So you want to help us out if you can. Any help would be greatly appreciated. Let me get to a laser pointer here. All right, and today we're going to be talking about the CNPS book. And the CNPS book is something I came up with because every time I'm out in the real world and meeting people who like science, and they ask me about science, what do you think about this? And then all of a sudden I start talking about some dissident or critical thinking ideas. People start to have they're not really understanding where this comes from. I don't always have on the tip of my tongue arguments against that show mainstream ideas wrong. So I was thinking to myself, what we need to do is really have a book, a comprehensive book, really broken down into 3 parts: critical thinking, and that's a real big problem, critical thinking in the universities, of course, and mainstream science, the problems with mainstream science, and then, of course, new directions and solutions. So those are the things we would put in this book, and we're going to edit it online. We're going to talk today about what we can put into it and what we stay out. I'm going to give you a live demonstration of that, so we'll be talking. Of course, that was a proposal from last week, a collaborative book of the top people in the CNPS. Obviously there have been hundreds of members of the CNPS. A lot of people have passed away because this started decades ago. So the people who started this, a lot of them are gone. I met them in 1996. I was 36 at the time. And I met a lot of people who were already in their 70s. A lot of them have passed on. Really great people. I've been really blessed to know and get to know a lot of these amazing critical thinkers and who really blaze the trail for really looking at things objectively and really not fearful of criticizing mainstream ideas. And there's a similar book out there. Well, it's not similar, but it's got the kind of the idea, and that's The Hidden History of Earth Expansion. If you haven't seen that, if you want to look at the expanding Earth theory or expansion tectonics, take a look at this book. This is the best book on the history of this theory. Of course, it was actually predates the plate tectonic theory. And so, but this idea, what Stephen did, which absolutely great, was to gather all the people who have done research in this area. You won't find any of this in a regular textbook. It's just simply astounding. Expansion tectonics, in my opinion, is almost undisputable now. And to not have an anthology of this is just, is absurd. But he did that. And this is kind of what we're trying to do with this book, partly. It's not only that, but partly. So today I'm going to be showing you our online collaboration tool for publishing. It's called Overleaf.com. Overleaf is the online publishing. I know I've been doing papers in my area I'm a computer scientist and natural language processing, writing about things, and I know a lot of the papers I collaborate with people from universities are done on the Overleaf. This is also, we do pay a monthly subscription for Overleaf, our membership. So if you are a person who wants to do your own book and have other people be able to look at it and collaborate with you, help you edit it, this is available to all paying members of the CNPS. If you want to set up a book, editing place to make a book that then it's in LaTeX. LaTeX is the publishing language for books, and Overleaf makes that editing of that LaTeX easy for people to do and collaborate. And that's what, again, we use. We have a subscription. I think we pay $30 monthly. One of the expenses. We'll be using, of course, this too, and we're going to do this book today. We're going to be looking at the organization live online. Here's kind of the way it looks. So you can get your own account for Overleaf, and then again, if you want to, we have actually other people who have had books and wanted books. We have our particle model book was here. Other people's books were here, and monographs. We had monographs, and of course all our proceedings that we've had in the last number of years when we were doing proceedings are there too. So that's what we're kind of doing. Let's get out of this and move to the actual book. So you can come here and we're going to load this book up. And what we have here, I'm going to kind of make this, see if I can make this bigger, but let me just explain how this all works. So I've set this book up to starting to make this book into a way that we can have many people cooperating with it. And what we're using here, this is the main file. We're using a document class called book. Overleaf has these document types. Let me see if I can get this a lot bigger. There we go. Sorry about that. There we go. And so you can see we're using a book, 12 point. Here's just a title, a table of contents. These things are automatically generated. So the good thing about all this, there's indexing and all that. All the indexes are generated automatically. You can just put in some code here to index things in the text, that's how it works. So here is basically you can include files. So instead of having everything in one gigantic file that doesn't make sense, you can actually break it down. And I've broken it down into part 0, 1, 2, and 3. There may be another one for appendices if we think we need them. Could be. We need appendices. And so this is the, I just put a publishing date of next year. But you have all the files. You can edit those files. You can just edit files here. When you're done editing, you can then generate a PDF at any time, assuming you don't have any errors. And here you can see, yeah, I can go over here. Here you can see the PDF that's generated right now. This is the title page. Physics, Cosmology, Philosophy, and Mathematics, Critiques and Solutions to the Biggest Problems Facing Science. I have it right now edited by, so we're going to have a bunch of people who are going to contribute to it. I just put it edited by. Again, nothing's written in stone. This is just to show you. And then I've organized the contents. Let me show you how I've done that. Let's do it this way. All right. So I have over here AAA.text is because this thing lists everything in alphabetical order. So if there's anything in part 1 or part 2 that's the beginning of how do you say, the main page for that part, then you have it. So this is the main page. Here's the main page for part 2, and the main page for part 2 includes these parts. You have a main page here. Right now it doesn't include anything in part 1. But the way I have it is part 0 has the forward introduction, prefix introduction. And that would be the idea here, whether we need all those parts or not. Again, you can see that in the main one. So here's the main book. You can see forward, preface, and introduction. This is just the folder it's in. So this will take whatever's written in that file and put it here in this book in this order. And you can see here I have the AAA, which is just, again, I put it AAA being the main page for that area, and everything's included in it. So again, you can see the AAA there, you can see the AAA there, and you can see the AAA there. So let me explain the other parts. Part 1 is the critical thinking and natural philosophy. And that's going to be talking about all the problems in philosophy, critical thinking. We don't do critical thinking in the universities. It's terrible. In some professions we do. If you're in software engineering, you want to break everything and what they call disrupt it. They're all for that. That's like business. It's a business model. Disrupting, we have here by Stephen Bryant. Could do this. See, disruptive, rewriting the rules of physics. Of course, is what people talk about, and yet physics, we don't do that. You can't. Let's go to here. This is pretty fun. I've got a meme here. You can see. Right here. So from our Beyond Mainstream.science, I've got this really fun, wonderful meme I made. Obviously I had something there, but this kind of tells it all. And that is, we can't challenge Einstein at a university. It's just not allowed. And that's stupid. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. Look, we're free thinkers. No one can tell us how to think. It's one of the things when you talk about philosophy and people being imprisoned or enslaved. You can't enslave what's in here. Well, at least not yet. And the idea is we are free to think on our own. We can challenge anything we want. And yet, and universities are supposed to be the bastion of teaching what we know and allowing students to break that or disrupt that or to challenge that. We don't at all. Zero. Doesn't happen. So that's what this whole chapter is going to be about. The book is going to start out by saying we don't allow for critical thinking. We don't allow for new ideas, new models, or to do an experiment that shows special relativity wrong, which we have numerous ones to do. 1, 2, 3 that I know of. And of course, all particle accelerators where mass increases and observed. So, anyways, the idea here is in the first part, when a person picks up this book, you have to justify why this exists. Why are we doing this? Why does this book have to be done? And the obvious answer is the change never. Well, it's sad, but the change never comes from within. So that's just not something we're looking to keep doing. We want to change that. So that's the idea, part 1. And I have some text here. This is all preliminary. This is David D. Hilster's brainstorming and stuff. Please, if you're in the CNPS, don't panic that this is the real thing or whatever. So that's, again, part 0 is forward, introduction, preface. Part 1 is going to be the critical thinking. It doesn't have a whole lot here. This is probably going to be written by a number of people. Part 2, if you come here, this is mainstream revisited, I'm saying, or beyond mainstream, whatever we want to, no, it's not beyond mainstream, it's mainstream revisited for sure. Questioning foundations is part of critical thinking. And here I have already put in part 2. So in part 2 in the folder, I have general topics. I have relativity, the Big Bang, quantum mechanics, plate tectonics, philosophy, mathematics. Now, these are all things that people have been critical and have written papers about in our organization, in our group, in our not-for-profit NPA and CNPS. So the idea here, again, not written in stone. I'm trying to put together what I know. Myself and Greg Volk, I was hoping maybe he could make it today. I don't think he can, but he and I in the 2000s, in the first decade of the 2000s, put together in the late, 2008, 2009, 2010, a huge database we made of all the people that we knew. That's what's in our wiki now. And these are some of the areas that people have been critical and talk about the problems in it. So these are problems in these areas, okay? You can see, we'll talk about the actual smaller parts of this. Part 3 is the new directions, and that is, what do we have in our group that talk about new directions? And yes, I don't have everybody in here at all. I've been doing this on my spare time with my full-time job. My wife's got a new business. My daughter's going to college. We're busy like everybody else. So, and I'm not doing this full-time in any way. But, I've quickly put together these ideas. Over the years, I've seen a lot of atomic models. The idea there is a lot of people say, well, hey, I'm just going to work at that level. Everything else comes from that level. So we do have atomic models. Expansion tectonics is a new direction. Not really, but it is a revisited new direction. Unifying models, there are people out there like Jeff Yee has a unifying model, the infinite universe theory, other people. And then I put in electric universe here as a new direction on its own because it's kind of its own thing. And I want to conclude that. Now, I'm sure there are other things here. There's mathematics. So, there would be mathematics in here. I don't want to put anything in here right now because it won't compile. If I put stuff in there that's not there when you go to compile this into a final form, into a PDF, then it won't compile. So that's part 3. And then there probably will be an appendix. And again, if you do this, there is like an index. You can put that here, something like this, index, whatever. And I won't put that in there now. You may have to have a package. I put this together really quickly. But of course, this tool allows us to do that. So in the middle of text, you have all that. Okay, so the way I look to do this, and again, this is just in the last day or so, is for people who are going to be contributing to this. How are they going to do that? Well, we're going to have people who are going to be working on the entire thing. Obviously, if you're part of this project, you can come in and you basically can share this project, meaning you can come in here and add you as a collaborator, and that collaborator allow you to edit stuff. But the idea will be we'll have some book bosses, myself, I don't know, Nick Percival, Greg Volk. Those are people that I kind of have as in mind. Nick is a kind of a person who's been helping out with this, bigger ideas and the whole organization. Greg Volk is a person who knows more about dissonant, has the biggest collection of dissonant work, I think, on the planet in his garage and stuff like that. So stuff like that. Boy, that's weird. So anyways, yeah, so those are 3 people. Now, if anybody else wants to help, if that's something that they think they're really good at and they really want to help out and really put in some time, then that would be great. But that's the idea. So how does it work with everybody else? Well, what I've done is I've decided to make a list of all the authors that will be contributing. And they come in, again, they're in alphabetical order, and you can see them here. These are just, again, me at the top of my head, literally, from memory, putting in things of the people I've talked with and met over the years. Some of these people are no longer with us, and we will be working with their work. We have Dr. Edward Dowdy from NASA, who passed away recently. We have Ricardo Carrizzani, passed away over 10 years ago, I think. And we have Ron Hatch as well. But their work is very important, in my opinion, so we want to keep them in. The rest of the people are here alive and kicking, and the idea is that every one of these people is going to have something that they're going to be able to write and only work on that part, which will then is inserted in here. So I can go in here and let's take a look at how that works then. So if you are a contributor where we have decided that you're going to put something in there, like Bill Lucas, there are problems that he sees in mainstream science. He has quite a lot of them. And so he would come in here and it says problems with forces, Dr. And then he would come in here and write his stuff. He can have sections and subsections, and he'll write his problems. Now, the other thing we're going to do, too, is we can see that we're going to have to limit the number of pages for each one of these. Some of these will have more, some of these will have less. But we're going to really have to limit everything to a number of pages. And like 3 pages is what I kind of am thinking. And then what happens is you can then put references to what else you're doing. So I know, again, there's people I don't include in here. Again, this is just me off the top of my head. This is not, please don't send me email. You're choosing only people you know. There's a lot of things in here I don't agree with. That's not even the point. The point is for us to put together the best of what we have and put that in here. This is not a comprehensive book. Now, it wouldn't mean that we couldn't do a comprehensive book in the future. Okay, we could do that. But again, these are just me putting together, starting to outline some things. There's Dennis McCarthy, who talks about the problems of flora and fauna in the expansion tectonics. So anyways, you can see all these kinds of things. Ed Dowdy. I'll give you an example. We can put extinction extinction shift. That's his work. I know there's somebody else who's picked it up. Extinction shift, Dr. Edward Dowdy. Now what this does is it's created a new file. It's in these things that you have here. You can just put a text, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so that's how you can make these things in these extinction shifts. So extinction shift to me is a person that's going to have something as a new model. So I would probably put it, I'm not sure, it's a unifying model, expansion tectonics, atomic model. I'll just put it in here from now. And what you can do here then is include that. If you type it, it actually will complete. So if I do Edward Dowdy, extinction shift, now that will be included in this area. So whatever he's writing in the unified models and theories, he would do this. It will appear here. This is probably not the place for it, but again, I'm not here to argue those little things right now. I'll be kind of organizing this book and working with some other people and their ideas. Not important, but you can see here, you have Borchert's got a universe. So under authors, Borchert, there's a file called Infinite Universe. So if I come up here, and if I were Glenn Borchert, I'd come up here and say, here's my infinite universe theory. I've got 3 pages to describe it. At the end, I can put all the references for it. All right, let me get some notes here because I have some ideas and I will forget those notes. So I'm going to make some notes as I do for discussion. Criticism. All right, there we go. My note. Criticisms. All right. So you can see that's how that works. So all of these parts will have subparts to them. So if we look in part 2 is where it starts, like the Big Bang. So the Big Bang, we have authors, George Coyne, problems, Big Bang, because some people have more than one problems, Glenn Borchert. And so, and again, if you are an author that lists, various distinct problems, I know there's Smolin, I think his name is, was he the Big Bang is wrong or something like that. Again, we'll add everything here. So if you have things to add, then of course you can email us. And I'm thinking for us to have meetings that are separate about this. So general relativity, we have authors Edward Dowdy, the problems with that. Ed Dowdy talks about that. He talked about that when he was alive. It was one of his big things. Mathematics, Peter Erickson, he talks about the problems in mathematics. And also Jack Kirkendall, he has these, I think it's a symmetric system, symmetric math. And then also there are problems with the mathematics, I know, specific with the force equations, Bill Lucas. Philosophy, we have Glenn Borchert, who is, in my opinion, probably our top scientific philosopher. We have Tectonics. We have author Stephen Hurrell talking about the problems with dinosaurs and mechanically. Dennis McCarthy, he talks about problems of flora and fauna. You got flowers in one Pacific island that's nowhere else on the planet, and it's on the coast of South America. And the only way to explain how that is to, okay. And James Axlow. I'm going to start reading some of this. I like that. Here we go. Reach out to Stephen Crothers. Absolutely. Stupid me. Love Stephen's work. So, hey, while you're here, we can do this live. Put in your suggestions. If I agree with them right away, then they go in. If not, then I nix. It's like, people are going to run with that. Oh, David's just like, so yeah, problems with, oh man, he's got problems with black holes. Oh yeah, see, there you go. So part 2, problems. We'll go in here and we should say black holes, quantum mechanics, plate tectonics. Put them in here. So this is how we do it. Black holes. All right, that's in part 2. So I need now a new file called black holes. There we go. I think they're chapters. So with black holes, I'll put in the chapter here, and then in here I'll put in input, authors, Stephen. No, it's Steve Crothers. Stephen Crothers, I think it is. Yeah, Stephen. Oh, that's why I'm spelling it wrong. Stephen Crothers problems. He may have more than one, but if he does, then we'll put that in there. So I go up here to Stephen Crothers, and I put in here a new file called problems. And we'll say it's going to be a section. It's going to be problems with, say, black holes. Stephen Crothers doesn't have a doctoral degree. He tried. That story. And there you go. So just to show you, let's compile the whole book. Here. Recompile. And if we look at the table of contents now, we can see critical thinking, natural philosophy, relativity. You can see special relativity. Here's Ron Hatch's part, Steve Bryan, Dr. Riccardo Carrizzani, Dr. Edward Dowdy, Big Bang, problem with the Big Bang. Oh, I think I put this wrong. This is big. Oh, yeah. So if I come over here to the sources, okay. So let's put that in there. It's part 2. The black holes. Yeah, I put the Big Bang. Put that here. Black holes. All right. And Stephen Crothers is there. Oh, didn't put the, there we go. Now we'll go back. Compile. See what we have. I'm just showing you guys how this works. There we go. Black holes. Black holes is Stephen Crothers. So you can see this is the kind of thing. There's the mainstream revisited. Critical thinking and natural philosophy. And we'll have, of course, things under here. And here's where you get a lot of people's refutations and stuff. And so you have the refutations for relativity. You have special relativity and general relativity. I've got this one a little bit because there's so much on that. The Big Bang. Oh, see, this is wrong. George Coyne. It's subsections and subsections. They all mean stuff. So, you know, George Coyne is here, problems. That should be a section. Problem with the Big Bang, Dr. Ricardo, Glenn Borkert. It's probably subsection 2. We'll recompile. This goes real fast. And there we have it, the Big Bang. Okay, so they're in there. So you can see the organization, quantum mechanics, Eric Reeder, plate tectonics. And then you get into, and there's mathematics, infinitesimals, Peter Erickson, problems with forces. And we need, something in there for Kirkendile. So there'll be problems. Yeah, I don't have that in. Oh, that's because I don't have anything here. Section. Problems with the real number system. That would be Jack. Kirkendile. There we go. So that's there. And then that's the problem. So those are the authors. And then we go back to our mathematics. And let's see here. Mathematics. And we have, we should have that now. We should just recompile. And we're there. Mathematics. There we go. Again, I'm just doing this. I know I'm doing this live, and that's like, why? Well, it's to show you that how this whole system works. So basically, you have these files. These files can have sub-files to keep things organized. So you can have this whole organization over here of files, and these files will make up your book. And they all come Everything's in a folder, nice and neat. And the only thing here is the top one, which is got table of contents, all the major parts, and then you have parts of the book. Now it knows this whole document, this document class book, is what allows us to do and all this stuff to happen. I didn't make this. All I did was put sections and subsections, and it will make it in the size of the book we want. It will number everything. You can see here, if you go through the book, there's like almost nothing there. But you can see part 1, critical thinking, then you have a little bit of stuff there. Part 2, mainstream revisited, and then you have these chapters. Of course, you can see nothing in them because no one's written anything, but you can see this entire book is constructed right away and PDF format. I'm just concentrating on the contents because that's what we want. So let's see. All right, so I think that is about it. One of the things, okay, so if you have anybody to suggest while we're here that to put in, and then if we kind of know who that is, we'll put that in, like a Stephen Crothers. I know there are people with your own theories and models. Absolutely, everybody's invited to participate. We will, as a group, choose things. We're not here to choose. I don't think we're going to put everything in it because then it becomes an anthology. But one of the things is I'm thinking what we can do is basically have this book be sort of a representation of what we have done over the last 5 decades. I haven't been involved in 5 decades. I've been involved in 3, but some people have been started a lot of this work in the 70s. So that's the idea, that this book will be something that we can hand to somebody and say, look, here are the here's what's going on. People aren't critically thinking. That is not taught in schools. It should be taught in schools. This is what happens when you don't do that. Here are the problems in mainstream science which they don't talk about, and that's something that we need to talk about and show them. Also included in the book, in this first part, Mainstream Revisited, should be experiments and things that refute. I know Dr. Karazani has one that he has described, which he tried to get 2 grad students to do, which was on radiation. And the teachers, each time, the 2 times that these grad students said they wanted to do his experiment, the new radium E experiment, which shows that all the energy in equals all the energy out, therefore the relativistic kinematic equations predict the things wrong. Then, oh, there's a person, Roger Anderton. He's got a lot of stuff he talks about. So Roger, yeah, I'm sure we're going to put some stuff in there for special relativity. We got a lot of stuff for relativity. Roger Anderton. Hopefully he wants to participate. Are you there? Yeah. So yeah, Peter Beckman. Oh, absolutely, Peter Beckman. Yeah. That's why we have to kind of keep these things short. Yeah, there's a whole area, Jim Marison, of people that has had a body of work. Again, I'm going to put these down in here that, obviously have done great work. There's a whole, Greg Volk knows a ton of people. I mean, we've got also, Dr. Cynthia Whitney. She's the one who applied special relativity to ring gyroscopes, and they failed. How do you spell that? Okay. So yeah, and there's also Dr. Francisco Mueller. I don't know if he's still alive, but he had an electrical, and I need to talk with Greg Volk about that. He had a simple electronics circuit. Oh man, I wish we had the video. We have videos of that. We had videos of that somewhere. We had videos of our 2010 conference, which was really great. It may still be there. And we had a bunch of people set up all these experiments that they did, and we need to get those experiments. In fact, probably a place in our book about that specifically, part 2. That's probably what we need to do is experiments. Yeah, we need to do that. Yeah, experiments. This is where we would have I'm just going to put it that way right now. Yeah, that needs to be put in there. But we had people who had experiments. He had an electric circuit that he said he wrote a paper on that says refutes special relativity. So that's interesting as well. There was another one. Oh yeah, the ring gyroscope. So anyways, that's something. Again, if you have, if you want to come in and talk with me, that would be great. I know this is kind of a holiday weekend. There's fewer people here today, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to watch this, especially because of the topic. And I'm going to, at the end, you want to stay to the end because I'm going to list people I don't like, and I don't like their theories. Most of them are etherists, and they're never going to be in the book. Okay, just I thought I would say that. Of course, that's absolutely not true. So make sure you do like and subscribe if you're watching this. Most of you are going to be watching this recorded. Please like and subscribe. Again, the idea that that we're going to even write a book about all these topics and be criticizing mainstream in a way that's going to be, a kind of a summary. Again, we have so much great work. We're going to keep it down to a minimum. So again, the idea is to pick up a book. Read about critical thinking, how we're doing that wrong. Read about the problems of mainstream science, including experiments that show that, pointing out the problems both logically that we found over the many decades, and then finding a lot of the new models and new ideas. To have it in a book in a compact form so a person can look at it and go, oh, wow. Kind of like our Beyond Mainstream website, but in book form. And really have things that are concrete, how special relativity fails at the Sagnac effect, which is going around a gyroscope. It's doing things it shouldn't do according to relativity and that kind of stuff. If you do want to join us live in the green room, want to talk to us, that'll be great. Here it is. You can go to live.naturalphilosophy.org, and it'd be wonderful to come and chat. And if you have any comments or questions, you can put comments or questions in the chat, and I will definitely put the information, put that up and answer a question or talk about it. Someone says here, I'm not familiar with this person, Gwilaya Saz, a theoretical physicist. Well, I don't know if somebody can kind of talk about that. Also, yeah, I guess Jim Madison says Peter Beckman, some credit him for starting the dissident movement. He started Galilean electrodynamics, of course. Oh, yes, and it was taken over by Cynthia Whitney, who I'm not sure is doing too well. I haven't talked to her, and I'm afraid that I think she was starting to not be well. So I wish her the best. I need to really talk to her husband. But she's been keeping the Journal for Galilean Electrodynamics. So absolutely. Let's see. Great idea. Cannot be deleted. Pre-sell the book. Let's see. Great idea for book. Cannot be deleted. Pre-sell the book. Yeah, we could do that. Right. But again, there's just so much that we can do. Nick Purcell's in there as well. I know Nick has joined us. Yeah, again, if you have somebody and again, I know there's a lot of older people and older people who really worked on things. Dr. John Chappell, Dr. Eberly Spencer, who's got to be 100 years old now. We had so many people, just so many people from the CNPS. Slips my mind their names, but their faces come to me. Peter Marquardt wrote a paper on the maximum force of gravity, or the speed of maximum force of gravity, which is kind of interesting. So, anyways, I will go ahead and leave the chat there, and let me put up there the live, so if you want to come in. But I'm going to bring up, if he's ready, we'll bring up Nick Percival. Nick, you wave it to me there. Are you ready? You have to unmute yourself there, and I'll bring you up. So there we go. Okay. I hear. Hey Nick, how you doing?
Hi, another great initiative here for this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it was funny because last time I was on, I was talking about, what was my topic? Oh yeah. What we were arguing. I don't even remember what the topic was of my two weeks ago. I've been just too busy with my brain. But regardless, when I was trying to look at that topic, it was, let me see what it was. I was thinking, how could we address this? Let me just look that up. YouTube, so youtube.dissidentscience.com. I'm telling a story that I can't tell. There we go. So we go to live, and my topic was, this was the topic, and it was a pretty interesting topic. What if we had a world audience? That is, all of a sudden they said, okay, CNPS and all the people for the last 5 decades we've been working at this, we're going to give you a world audience. What would you say, right? What would you say to these people? And I was thinking to myself, I don't know. All we have is a bunch of people who work kind of independently. We don't put together like some team argument. And I was thinking, as I was making the slides, the Friday before that talk 2 weeks ago, I came up with this idea. I said, why don't we put it all in a book so that we can hand it to somebody and say, here are the 3 areas. Critical thinking, how that's failed us and how we need to get that back in, and speak about philosophy. The second one is all the problems in mainstream science, including experiments that contradict mainstream and data that contradicts mainstream. And then finally, a part of all the kind of work, kind of curated small, 3 pages of your work, 3 pages of my father and I's work, 3 pages of Ginsberg's work, 3 pages of Jeff Yee's work, 3 pages of Keen's work, Allen's work, Lucas's work. So I just think it is a great idea, and we have the ability to do it because we have this editing system that's really great. So what's your initial reaction? You think this is doable?
I don't know if it's doable, but you answered my question, because I was going to say, how do we go about putting in all of the work we've done over the decades? And I think you've solved that by saying we condense it down to 3 pages and then have references at the end.
Exactly.
That solved my biggest initial problem.
Right, exactly.
Or challenge or obstacle to achieving this.
Yes, and the other thing too is, if for some reason, and think of it this way too, we could then come up with books of people's work, of curated work that's organized, that instead of just proceedings, what we've had over the years are proceedings, and we've got a lot of papers for that, but we could have a curated book of people's work as well that we could come out with that would be pretty easy to put together, and having those works so that people then could buy those and have them. People say, well, you got websites and all that. The problem with websites is that the tendency is to click around really fast, and that a lot of times people don't stay on anything very long. They don't, you get lost. you click, you get lost. The next thing, an ad comes up, and you go, "Oh, I need an automatic egg beater that I can take in my pocket," and then they're off somewhere else. Whereas having a book in hand, I think is something that I think should, you know, he says, yeah, somebody is saying here, isn't that the point of Vixra? Yeah, it is there for sure, but I think the difference is that of course holds a lot of stuff that's mainstream. There's no there I think there's critical papers in there. I think our people,
Yes.
yeah, but the problem is they get lost. I mean, if you go to that, you're not going to search up Einstein's wrong and people think, "Oh, yeah, of course. Let me read all those." And as a critical thinker, maybe he is wrong. I mean, unfortunately, that kind of doesn't happen. So I still think having a book that is having something, oh yeah, here's something, this is pretty cool. After a book is finalized and published, then have a book signing plus conference. That's pretty cool. That would actually get people there, right? Because they'll be part of the book, and we can have samba shows like I did in 2010, bring in a samba dancers, and I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think that would be very interesting. So,
Well, since we have a lot of people out there, I don't know how coherent I am today. I just got over a double dose of COVID, so
oh my gosh. Oh,
my
sorry about
mind's
that.
a bit scrambled. But two of your sections were mathematics and philosophy, and I kind of had a negative reaction because I think of those two areas as two of the big problem areas in
Oh no, but they
physics.
are. They are. Let me just show you here.
But I mean, there has to be some title like math for physics or mathematics in physics, some time or to
yeah.
physics rather than just mathematics.
Yeah, no, I understood. Yeah, I understand that. But they're absolutely made to be, problems in mainstream. If I look at here, if we look at, let's see, if we look at, let me share this. Yeah, if we look at this here, let me move this over. This is mainstream revisited. I mean, I can go in here and say, you know, mainstream problems or problems in mainstream, you know.
The use of mathematics unconstrained by coherent physical models.
Yeah. Well, the idea here is it's underneath that. This is because it's mathematics problem, mainstream science. So if I do this, the idea here is that these areas, oh, what happened there? Oops. See, I'm doing something it doesn't like for some reason. All right, experiments. Oh, that's probably because this isn't there. Oh, let's try it again. Okay, there we go. But see, here we have now problems in mainstream science. And the idea is all of these things, including mathematics, is going to be problems in mainstream science. I mean, when we talk about mathematics, I'm just trying to here's the critical thinking and philosophy, part one. Part two are all the problems in mainstream science. That's what these are. So quantum mechanics is problems. So when people are reading this, they know they're in the problems area. And of course, when you immediately talk about mathematics, you want to talk about the problems. Questioning foundation is part of critical thinking. Everything we are taught, everything we read, everything we and then in the mathematical part, I don't know, probably put something there. Yeah. I mean, here, I already have something. It says mathematics has been one of the most powerful systems ever developed by humans. Without it, almost none of the modern technologies could exist. Yet, when it comes to the real number system, there are inherent problems with mathematics as pertains to the physical world. That's kind of the way I'm doing it. So, I mean,
Okay, in terms of philosophy, I mean,
yes,
philosophy has kind of lost the meaning of natural philosophy.
yes, and
and
that's
it,
what we talk about.
and
Yeah,
and it's more thought of today as kind of vague ivory tower thinking.
right.
I was thinking maybe replacing that with um, foundational ideas in physics or some other term than philosophy.
Right, right. Yeah, we can do
Really
that.
basic thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think these are some of the things we can look at. I think I've already shared this with you, Nick. So I think you can go in and take a look at it, and you can make comments on all of this stuff. So if you go this way, well, no, this is you can't get from here to here. But oftentimes, if you're in text somewhere, you can do that. You can come over here and you can make comments in the,
Oh,
you can make comments here, add a review, that kind of stuff. So again, that's the idea. Is this is a collaborative system, and that's that's the idea. Now, one of the things I do want to say, it's what, almost 11. One of the things I do want to talk about with other people too is this idea that I've saw one person in particular. They were really kind of hell bent on it. I thought about it a little bit, but I am not sure I'm necessarily agreeing we should do what this person was suggesting, and that was we need to put the plus and minuses of all of our particular ideas. Now, at first, it sounded interesting, like you could have, Jeff Yee's model, and then have three people who give supporting comments and three people who don't give supporting comments. And I think the problem with that is it will get to be really muddied and not let the person make their own thoughts about it. And I think part of the problem that the person was suggesting was that they were thinking, I don't want so and so's theory to be put in because I have a huge objection. This is just wrong. This is why. And I know that during the years that I've been involved, the 3 decades I've been involved with this group, is that there are people like that. There are people who are out there hell bent on saying, it's like when somebody writes about the neutrino. I'm not going to go, I'm hell bent on going in, and the guy who writes about gravity model with the neutrino, I'm going to say the neutrino doesn't exist for these 5 different reasons, and I need to be able to put that in there, and that should be part of the book. I mean, I think it's interesting, the concept, but I think we could muddy the waters and actually shoot ourselves in the foot. Not because there are criticisms, but I think the idea of the book is to present stuff, let people make up their own minds, right? I don't know. I just think if we were to put in the person who, put in people's, this idea that kind of like a comments section in a book for Nick Percival writes about time. You have 3 pages that talks about time because you have excellent work there. Well, the people will then solicit, people who are going to put their criticisms or support and put those in that section. I really think that that may be too much.
I would think that that's kind of redundant.
Yeah.
Because you're going to put in a whole lot of authors who disagree with each other.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
And the best thing, the challenge one has when one's reading a new idea is to try and rebut or challenge what's being said sentence by sentence. It's much better to let the person try and get the entire idea. And I think the criticisms at the end sort of is against that approach.
Right. Here's a person I know. I know he's more of has done some work. I believe he's mentioned his work before. He wrote a PhD, I think, in physics, more conventional physics. But he says you've got a bunch of theories, some in direct conflict with one another. No way to do each was right or wrong, and all in direct conflict with modern physics. Yes.
Well,
yes.
Not all in direct conflict with,
yeah, that's true.
Physics experiments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
the other thing is it's in direct conflict with modern physics. Yeah, because modern physics is wrong.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with modern physics. Absolutely wrong with it. And yeah, that's the idea. Here's the other myth that people have. They have this myth that science, physics especially, finds truths. Once we find a truth, it is a truth forever. It never can be questioned. Like the atomic structure and atomic tables, the way we have them. I mean, they're pretty well used. The system works pretty well. Okay, there may be different models of exactly what's happening in the atoms, but that's pretty well. So the idea is that science and physics can never have two conflicting models. You can't have that. That's kind of, and the way they say that is that the universe is one way, and the universe dictates what's going on, and therefore you can't have two different models to do the exact same thing. And the problem is that the physical world, no matter how much we think we know about it, and we think that's written in stone, it's so complex that you can have many different models that do better. I mean, we have that already, right? We have electrical engineering equations that have tell you about current and resistance and all that. All the calculations for electrical engineering components are out there. They work really great. There's no physical reality to any of them. I know my dad's an electrical engineer all his life, and he'll tell you that. So that system works really great. Now, is that the case that is wrong because it's not the physical side of it, or maybe we have a physics model that explains them differently, which we do. We have our four universal. We're trying to discuss all the electronic components in four universal motions. That makes them physical. You can't have those two things together? Oh, of course you can. And I think that is a myth. It's a myth that that physics and the universe is one way. Once you find that equation, that's it. You can't have more than one system for the physical universe. But all the systems we come up with are wrong. They're maybe less wrong than the other ones. But do you understand what the argument is? That is, what judges theory isn't people, and you can't have two theories that are correct because only one is correct, because there's only one universe, and therefore it'll tell you all those things. I mean, what do you think about that, Nick? So the question is, we only can have one theory. We can't have a bunch of theories. One of them is right because the universe is only one way.
Yeah, it seems to me that's anti-science. I like the science of the 19th century, where you had a whole bunch of competing theories and a lot of progress was made during the 19th century. I mean, science is about always questioning and always trying to move the ball ahead. What's wrong with modern science is saying, here's currently accepted theory and that's it, and you're wrong to challenge it.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I think this comes from. Is Andrew here in the chat? He says, much better to take your best theory and hash it out. No, I mean that's exactly why mainstream science is completely stuck. If you look at particle physics, the way they do particle physics, everyone read the Higgs fake. Read it. I will guarantee if we send a team of engineers who work on problems and work on both computer scientists, engineers, and scientists in general to the Large Hadron Collider and observe what you can read about in Alexander Unsker's book, you're going to find that they do not follow the scientific method anywhere. It's really amazing. The way they go about it is they make a prediction, they say everything else is noise, they look for a signal, whether it's a real signal or not, they claim to find that signal, then they say, okay, we've proven that, then they go on to something else, and they read Alexander Unsker's book. So the idea that, there's even mainstream science, the problem is it's been so corrupted without the ability for people to challenge it. It's become this whole idea that one theory is the best and that competing theories shouldn't be allowed. Comes from an arrogance, in my opinion, of we somehow are just so smart in the 20th century we came up with all the answers, and you get all these crazy ideas that history and science has ended. Those, how we hear that now and then, where we've gotten to the point where it's done, we have nothing more to do.
Yeah, physics academia has become like an authoritarian system, and authoritative systems suppress any new ideas and any overthrow of the current system.
Yeah, and again, Andrew, did you read the book? I mean, read the book and understand it. Is the Higgs fake? Did you read it? Did you read Sabine Hassenfelder's book, Lost in Math? She was in particle physics. She was with a Large Hadron team and dropped out of it. You can say what you want, but when you go and you look at the method to which they are convinced. The other thing too is that's really bad in mainstream science is that I'm going to put that in here. Read the Higgs fake by Alexander Unsicker. Here, a good example of how this kind of arrogance is there is with the gravitational waves. When LIGO claimed to have the gravitational waves detected, two Danish physicists came up and said, no, it's noise. And here's why. For the next 2 years, instead of the people in LIGO looking at the claim that it's noise, trying to understand it, to see if it is noise and saying, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board, they spent the next 2 years flying over to Denmark to tell them how it is data. They never faced the criticisms. If I get my PhD in particle physics, I will never face the criticisms levied by Dr. Alexander Unsicker, which is particle physics is done not using the scientific method. They say it is, but when you have a person outside come in and look at it, it isn't. And so, that's another problem. We can't expect a person who has been through the system and has learned the logic of that system to be able to step outside and say, okay, this is wrong. It's a good example of that actually happening was with Dr. Cynthia Whitney. You know her story, right, Nick?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, basically, she wrote her PhD in MIT in special relativity. And the first thing she did out of after her PhD was to take her work and apply it to the ring gyroscope, Sagnac effect, right? The Sagnac effect. And it failed.
Yeah, we had a number of speakers from the outside back in the days of the NPA who were doing real work, and they would say, we tried to use relativity, but it wouldn't work, and this is how we fixed the system so it would work.
Yeah, and
relativity.
Now, that's one of the things, Nick. Maybe if you can do some research and let's try to find those people, because if we can get those, I think that's a great thing to put in the book. I need to talk with Cynthia Whitney's husband because I don't know how she's doing right now. I'm not sure she's very coherent these days, but I'd like to try to get her story. I tried to get her to write it, but it was kind of a little bit nebulous by the time I got to her. But that's a perfect example. And no one. The thing is, they don't look like it.
Let me just add a quick point about the Higgs fake. You have an absolute ton of data generated by the particle accelerator.
Right.
And you have incredibly powerful computers that you program to look for a particular pattern in this incredible amount of data. And above and beyond that, if you don't find what you're supposed to be looking for, it's a failure. You don't have anything to publish. But if you find this pattern in this incredible amount of raw data, then they pop open the champagne, and you're eligible for the Nobel Prize. So everything is slanted for you to find
Of course.
corroboration for existing theories.
Believe
And
me,
if
when
you don't
yeah.
find it, then it's a failure and you're
Oh yeah, it's a billion. They have to justify, the $1 billion being spent on the collider. But if you again, if you live inside the bubble, it's sort of like being in Washington D.C. If you live inside the bubble of Washington D.C. and you have lobbyists and you have constituents who build war machines and stuff like that, and you vote for this stuff, you're not standing back and thinking philosophically, is this a good thing because we're bombing 9 countries and people are innocent? You don't sit there. You're in your bubble in Washington thinking about your constituents who are engineers and their families have jobs and that kind of stuff. It's the same thing. You're inside a bubble which goes through these things. If you teach 50% of the kids in my Einstein Wrong film in the advanced physics class in Long Beach, California, said they would forego truth to get their degree or their position at a university. These are 18-year-old kids. And they were being honest. Yeah, I mean, if I need to and I say this is and I know it's wrong, I don't care because I'm going to write my paper, I'm going to do my stuff, and that's fine. And it's really rare to have a person like Sabine Hassenfelder pop out who's kind of a little disillusioned. Really hard to do. It's really hard to do. And the problem is they won't see it, they won't talk about it, or they'll do what I call this is what with Karazani's work, I call it the Luke Skywalker Death Star shot. So what you do is you have like the Higgs fake, right? So you read all the things that if you were from SpaceX and you read the Higgs face, you would shake your head in disbelief that they call this scientific method, right? And so what happens is if you are in particle physics, you read the Higgs fake, there's like a line on page 47 that says this. It contradicts something that you consider to be very fundamental. And what they say is, page 47, this line, this is obviously wrong. Therefore, if one thing is wrong with this idea, everything collapses. And it's like Luke Skywalker, you have this gigantic Death Star. I go in, make that one shot, and I blow the whole thing up. That's what I've seen happen over and over.
Yeah, before I was familiar with the Higgs fake, I read Smoot's book on wisdoms and time, and just independently, I saw the exact same phenomenon of tons of data.
Right.
You're looking for a signal.
Right.
If you don't find that signal using tons of software to go through all this data.
Right, of course.
If you don't find it, you're a failure. But if you do find it, you're
right.
a success.
You get your name and
campaign parties, Nobel Prize, best discovery of the century. So that's the dynamic. That
right.
From the smallest particles all the way up to the cosmos, that's the dynamic that's working against discovery.
Yeah, it's amazing that when people are inside the system, they will not see that and they won't look at it. That's the other problem. They just don't look at it.
Point. Yep.
Yeah. So, anyways, again, I do think that just putting the information in this book so people can see it. I remember. I think there was. Oh yeah. Here, I'm going to find this. I have a. Let's see. MPA Hilster Consensus in Science. Consensus in Science. This is the one. I don't know if Andrew would look at this, but this is a Consensus in Science is wrong. There's like 1,000 views. It's about 10 years ago. And I talk about for 26 minutes what it is to have consensus and how consensus in science, I'll put that into the chat. This is one of, again, the kind of problem that you have, that the idea is you have to have consensus. And that consensus is necessary in science. Otherwise, how can we do anything? And we did talk about these kinds of things. The philosophical idea that I said, in truth, I say, here's the, I'll read the description. It says, mainstream science accuses dissident science, including the natural philosophy group, of not being able to come to a consensus. The truth is, consensus is not healthy for finding truth, nor is it the best philosophy for any part of serious human endeavor. In technology, the corporate world, engineering, law, politics, sports, and many other areas, consensus is a death sentence for progress and the worst way to come up with the best solutions to problems. It is consensus that has created the major problems in physics and cosmology, and is the straw man set up by both the mainstream and people in the National Philosophy Alliance that is being distracted from the task, which is today allowing competing ideas to fight it out. I mean, that's. I even mentioned this was at the 19th annual conference in Albuquerque, Mexico, from 2012 to 10 years ago. And that's another thing is this idea of consensus is just not something that's healthy, So it says an argument from populism is a logical fallacy. I'm not sure I'm understanding. What do you mean by situated? Okay. So Andrew, where is the top quark situated? Anybody ever? Okay. Yeah. They're discussing, I guess, things there, but particle physics is one of those areas that I think Alexander Unsker talks about a lot. And he basically says, which is true, the thing you're talking about, finding all the data. One of the things that people are looking is to use machine learning to try to find patterns in the data that we didn't see in the data, and somehow correlate that to something. But how can it correlate to anything when we have no physicality for any of this stuff anyways? We've been, since the beginning in particle physics, being like, I don't know, geologists, well, not even geologists. Geologists do better than particle physics, but I would say basically they're just smashing things, right? Here's a ball of something. We're going to smash something into it. It's going to break apart into pieces, and we're going to see trails from that. How the heck do we know what that is physically in any way, shape, or form? I mean, we can see pieces happening. How do we know that they're just not random pieces, that we're blowing apart a bowling ball and every time it's going to be different? And there'll be some similarities because pieces will have similar parts because of just the sheer number of times you do this. They do what, millions of collisions, don't they? And they look at millions, if not billions, of collisions to find these patterns, don't they?
Right.
Yeah. So anyways, interesting stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nick. I'll let you go, but I would definitely take we have that book up there. Any comments and stuff will be greatly appreciated. So I'm going to bring somebody else up here, but thanks so much. And I did put you as one of the people kind of editing this whole thing. So hopefully that's greatly. And congratulations again on your Lifetime Achievement Award. Very greatly. Not too many people of those running around here. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. Dennis. Hey, how you doing, Dennis? How are you?
Thank you. Good. I just wanted to say that, I work in different areas.
Right.
And, but I'm 80 now, and it takes all I can handle just to do a derived spreadsheet and put it on ResearchGate and academia.edu. I know you're familiar with computer languages and so on, and I don't think you realize that you lost me at about 30 seconds into your explanation of how this book is going to work. Somehow there's a disconnect here, and I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. So I just thought I'd mention that. And that's
okay. I'm not sure. I don't understand the comment. Go ahead. Try that again.
Well, you were explaining how this book is going to work and all these different parts and so on. I'm not familiar with that kind of thinking. I have a few books, but they're PDF files which I typed up at the library. I don't have Microsoft Word on my computer, and they had all these things about automatically indexing and everything.
You don't have to worry about any of that. What happens is, if in this book, if there is something that we're putting together, we're trying to put as many of the main ideas as we can that have happened in our organization over the last 30 years, is that the idea will be, then once we do that, we'll know which parts we want from who. If there's a part we want from you, we'll explain that to you, explain how many pages or how much text we need from you, and that'll be it. You don't have to do anything yourself.
Well, I have to furnish the text.
Well, you would, if, again, you will do that if we ask you, if we say, look, we're needing you to do this with your work, then we'll contact you about that. Yeah, but you would just type it. You can't type?
I can type, but
you would send us the text, but you would send us an email.
You're so familiar with all these things, automatic indexing and all that. I mean, but I don't have indexes in my book because it's
no, you're not understanding what you are only asked to give us literally text, nothing else. No indexing, no nothing. We would ask you to
latex.
no
latex.
I would say write a paragraph on your pet dog and send that in an email. That's what we're asking. That's what we're asking. We're not asking you to format anything. We would say, Dennis, we want you to write about this, about what you know. Please write it and send the text to us in email. That's it.
All right, now how many pages of text would you want from me?
Well, first of all, we don't have any of those answers yet. So we don't even know what we would want from you particularly.
You can say roughly how many pages?
Well, right now we're looking to keep, if it's about your particular work on a particular subject, the most we're allowing would be 3 pages. But we don't know what that is and what's going to be included yet.
All right, okay.
Okay? So the question is we are going to be curating, and the best thing we can do is, take a look at what we need, and then ask people that we feel, and it's a group effort, that our group feels is worth having that information in, then we should put it in. So, okay?
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much, Dennis. Again, there's work involved, but the idea is to not really make any new work, but to have work that goes, work that has been done, put into a place in an organized way so that we can make it an organized effort to do exactly what a lot of people don't want, and that is to have different ideas for different things. And of course, mainstream is failing. It's less like GPS. GPS, you hear this incessantly. And I know people here in the chat are going to say it works. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. 2 people I know from 2 different GPS, they don't use relativity in their calculations. The theoretical people have come up with their explanation. That's not what the equations that are being used. People say, of course we know, of course you don't, because these things are private. Navcom, where Ron Hatch, they're not going to give you their equations. It's a $1 billion business. And those people will say over and over, we do not use relativity. It doesn't come into our calculations. They use relativistic calculations, but it's not Einsteinian relativity. And they have to adjust the clocks. Absolutely, clocks are mechanical. Even atomic clocks are mechanical. People think they're not. They're atomic clocks. They're made up of atoms. Mechanical things are made of atoms. So atomic clocks are affected by that. So, and okay. Here's some stuff. Okay, you want to get me on this, Andrew? Quarks were invented. Finding quarks was an invention, just like anything else. And as Alexander Unsergid, who is a has its doctoral in science. They are arbitrary packages with arbitrary attributes. Someone came up with the idea that, oh, we have electrons, neutrons, and protons, and therefore everything must be made of one particle. So they came up with the quark. The funny thing about the quark is people don't look at this. This is the funny thing about all of particle physics. The moment you question the origin of any particle physicists say, that doesn't matter now. We know something different. They literally ignore it. They ignore it about the neutrino. They ignore it about the quark. The quark was an invented idea that says, I think, whoa, we have the atomic. This is how it works. If you look at from the high level up, and you're not married into the idea that this is correct or not, you look at it as a system. What you have are people who observed, oh, we have all these atoms. We have a periodic table. Oh, we can describe all these atoms with 3 different particles: the electron, neutron, and proton. Okay. Then someone says, oh, in the 1960s, oh, well, all of those are made of one particle. Because the idea was the whole universe can be kept broken down into its pieces until you get to one. Now, there's a whole little philosophical reason why that doesn't work at all, because then you have a particle. If you had the entire universe made out of one particle, the philosophical and logical reason that can't work is because you would have to imbue arbitrary attributes to make that thing organize itself in the way it does. So even if you don't get into that part, what you did is you went from electrons, neutrons, protons to quarks, and everything was made of quarks. Well, it wasn't everything, because you have the electron, so the proton and neutron, they're made of quarks. And first there were 6, then there were 9. Yes, and they do a lot. They couldn't find the top quark. I think it was in the early 1990s. They have a paper that was literally signed by 900 people. Why would it sign 900 people? Because they all want to have their name on, I discovered the up quark, or whatever quark it was that they couldn't find. And as Alexander, if you look at the science, quote unquote, scientific method they use, which isn't a scientific method, to find these, if you stand on the outside looking in and you don't just list again, what you'll hear from people in particle physics is, this is how we do it, and it's scientific. I want to see people who are not in that scientific field do that. And I'm talking about people who come in, not the engineers who work on it, not the computer scientists who work on it. I don't care. Anybody from the inside, someone from the outside, independent, come in and look at that method. And what you end up with are arbitrary packages, because when you do smashing together, we look at interactions. Interactions of what? That's the problem. When you smash things together, there's something that's coming at it that has a structure, something that's inside that has a structure. The only thing you can look for are regularities, maybe, parts that look regular, that come out on a regular basis. Now, again, whether or not that's a real regular particle. But again, what happens is what you hear from the particle physicists, what you hear from people who are talking particle physics, it's right, it's a scientific method, is they will incessantly repeat how they do it. They do not look at the criticisms. That's the problem. They don't look at the criticisms. When we say they're arbitrary packages and arbitrary problems, that there is a immense amount of data which they look at and they eliminate arbitrarily, because they say in their system, in their minds, they've all discussed amongst themselves that this thing should happen with this kind of signal. They go and look for it. When they find it in LIGO, two people in Denmark repeat it incessantly. They don't look at that. Those people didn't look at it. People in particle physics don't look at the criticisms that are levied by people outside. The only way it's going to happen is if some committee from somewhere with billions of dollars being spent at the Hadron Collider comes in and just wreaks havoc and says, this is not the scientific way. This is not the way science is done. This would never hold up. And everything that has been concluded from this is therefore moot and destroyed. They're not going to. They will stand on their soapboxes until the day they die, repeating their systems over and over, saying they're right. They don't look at what's wrong. It doesn't happen. And that's what I've seen over and over and over and over again. And that's what makes this organization much better. Why is this organization better? Because if you get up and give a paper, there's a couple of things that happen. This is one of the wonderful things about conferences, and maybe we can get back into them. What happens is when a person walks up on the podium in front of the CNPS or the MPA, and we've had conferences with way over 100 people in the audience, and they start to talk. Two things that are very different from any other conference at Science. Number one, the person who is talking because of what they wrote. They could be Albert Einstein, who is a scientist who was in a patent office who wrote a paper. They could have a PhD from MIT in special relativity. Those people are treated the same. Why? Because we don't care about who they are or what their title is. Or, oh, is your paper published in a mainstream journal? No, that's not the way you should look at anything. Is the paper published a good paper, a scientific paper, a valid paper, a paper that presents very logical things that merits your attention? This whole idea that when people ask me, oh, the four universal motions in physics that you and your father came up with, have you published in a peer-reviewed journal? That's not even true, because we could publish in a peer-reviewed journal, which is our own journal. Oh, that's not the same. When you go to a conference, I have seen people who have no degree in physics, no degree in cosmology, write papers on that, and extremely valid and interesting papers. And that is the part that is different. That's the way science should be. That's the way life is. If you lived in a small village where everything was only that village and you got all your food, you grew your own food, you did everything in that village, you constructed everything, and the only people you knew were in that village. In the end of the 19th century, it was a wonderful time, as Nick had alluded to. In the end of the 19th century, the 1890s, for instance, scientists, natural philosophers, mathematicians, poets, musicians, engineers, people in industry, they would get together in parlors and in places, and everyone would discuss everything. We don't do that anymore. We don't do that because it's been specialized. So you can't have any good ideas about particle physics, or I don't even like particle physics, about physics. You're an artist. And that's where things went terribly wrong. And we talk about, dimension. Now we talk in science poetry. A lot of people here talk about that, science poetry. I see so much science poetry in our chat all the time. People use words, loaded words, and there's just no physicality about it. They're just systems. It's like symmetry. It's like, particle physics in general, these arbitrary things, hadron and super symmetry, half spin. I mean, it's a Harry Potter's world. That's what it is. And you get mixed up in math, and then if you ask the person, what's light really? If it is a particle and a wave, what is it really? And if space-time, what's space-time? Is it a foam? No, there's nothing there. It's amazing. It's called physics, and modern physics has almost the entirety of void in what physics is today. Ooh, look at this. Hey, there you go. Wateo to our left. Dave is slipping into his usual shrill nerd sermon. That's really interesting. That is what happens when you make a comment like that. If you want to know, Wateo, that is not a scientific comment. It's not even a debate. If you were in a debate, you would just given a 0. because you're just talking about emotional sides. This isn't emotional. I get emotional about the physics, and I talk about the physical side and how there is none. But this isn't like, this isn't that's not discussion. That's not discussion. It's emotion. And what I'm saying is that people are constantly talking about words and physics and mathematics without any notion of caring about physicality. And I think it's important, physics. Yeah, but anyways, interesting. I don't know. Come on. Go to live dot. People don't do that. I don't have a problem. Come on and say what you want. I'll let you talk for 5 minutes, 10 minutes straight. I won't interject, I promise. But I think the problem I always find as a physics police guy is people use loaded words, and then when I ask about those words, there's explosions, emotional explosions about them. That's what usually happens. It's because they'll talk word salad, words. And then when you say, wait a minute, that's a lot of words. What's going on there in a physical sense? That's one of the things that bothers me a lot, is that you talk about things that are, people talk in the science poetry. It's just poetry, that people talk. There are millions of people who talk science poetry. The science evangelists do that all the time. It's all science poetry. Neil deGrasse Tyson. You ask him if Einstein can be wrong and he laughs. Why does he laugh? Because he's not a critical thinker. He's not a scientist in any way. Because a scientist, if you tell me that Newton's wrong, I said, yeah, it's not right about everything, for sure. Everybody's wrong. But they don't say that. It's been proven is another one. There is no proof for anything. You have support to ideas, but you don't have, proofs of anything. I mean, that's what that's what Neil deGrasse Tyson said. He laughed, which is not an argument. Yes, Einstein's wrong. Yes, he is. Newton's wrong. Everyone's wrong. My dad and I are wrong. Jeff E's wrong. Glenn Borker's wrong. Everybody's wrong. The question is can we get better models that are less wrong than before? And Neil deGrasse Tyson then says, well, it's proven millions of times a day. No, those people who claim that that particular experiment support that, claim that there are millions of experiments that support that. They claim that. But every time, millions of times a day, ask Dr. Kelsley from the Stanford Linear Accelerator, who's got a PhD in experimental physics, who did work in a physics collider. They do not see mass increase, and he has to unteach special relativity. This is from a particle physicist. You know what he says? He's not he's not a theoretical physicist. He works with real things. And yes, when you smash things together, you're working with real things. The claims you make about them are the problems. And the way you go about making those conclusions are the problems, not the actual experiment. I think we have to step back and say, what is really going on, and can we get really anything out of this that's going to be useful? I think that would be a much more, and that's what's happening. Stanford Linear Accelerator right now isn't being used for theoretical physics because after how many decades, nothing ever came out of it, even technically. There wasn't even a technology they could claim that was worth investment. I think it's now a microscope for the fast reaction of molecules. At least that was 10 some years ago when I talked to what they were doing there. So. Okay, then why isn't mass increase seen in particle accelerators, Andrew? And why if I brought an experimental physicist who would argue and they have to unteach it? The other thing too is the only time relativity, you're saying you're making a very broad statement. Let me put it more into concrete terms. When particle physicists smash things together, what they do is they use relativistic kinematic equations in the end game. They don't see mass increase, which of course is against special relativity. They don't see evidence for mass increase. That is, as I push this particle along, it's getting harder to push. It's not getting harder to push because Newtonian forces, we know that already. If there's a bicycle who's traveling at 50 miles an hour and you're running at 30 miles an hour, you're not going to make it go faster. And if the bicycle's at 30 miles an hour and you're running at 40 miles an hour, you're going to only accelerate it a little bit more. We know that all these kinds of arguments for the taking more energy accelerate, we know it's Newtonian. What happens is when they get the end game, they don't use an autodynamic equation like Karazani has proposed, which has relativity removed from it. They use the relativistic kinematic equations. Oh yeah, it works out because when you add the neutrino in, which you don't need, yeah, it won't work if you don't have relativistic equations plus the neutrino equals conservation of energy. Or you can use autodynamic equations with relativity moved and no neutrino, Occam's razor. It works. Nucleus collision. Read the article. So making these blanket statements just don't. Do you use relativistic kinematic equations? Do you see mass increase, like relativity says? So just saying a statement, I'm experimental physicist and use plain old vanilla relativity. No. You didn't tell me. You didn't. Look. I've looked into it too. I'm not a particle physicist, but I asked the questions how it's actually used, not a blanket statement that relativity is there. The blanket statement is there because particle physicists, including Dr. Kelsey, does not want to go up public and saying Einstein's wrong. They don't want to do that. It ruins careers. So, alrighty. We have James Keene. You're here. Did you want to say anything? I know you've been in the green room. How you doing, James? Would you like to bring you up just to say hello at least? You're in the green room because I know you guys work a lot on Saturdays. In fact, I will ask you in a bit. Let me bring you up there. You can unmute yourself.
Hi,
hey, James.
I don't have any particular comment right now. I'm just listening. Thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us, because you are down there, you guys have been doing alternative Saturdays. You've been a part of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so why don't you give somebody, we do have some time left, but why don't you give somebody an idea of what you guys talk about on the alternative Saturdays? Could you do that real briefly?
Yes, well, we've been in new people that haven't participated recently, such as Peter Jackson and Henri Cornier to make presentations, and this may tend to expand our group a bit.
Yeah, but it's also more technical normally, right?
I suppose you could say so.
Yeah.
By the way, Andrew Castro, you can just come in live if you want, sir. Okay, if you're still there, come to live.
Oh, see, yeah. People can come to live. Just go to live.naturalphilosophy.org and come on in. So what do you think about the idea of our group trying to put together a book in a more organized way that would be able to explain to people kind of the whole philosophy, what we do, and our different ideas and our different approaches and the problems with mainstream? What are you thinking about all that?
Well, I haven't formed a firm opinion on it yet. I'm still thinking about it, and this is new in the last week or so. But I do wish you best wishes on that.
Okay. All right. But I think it's just something I think we can do as a group. We just haven't done that. I think one of the problems I've seen is we haven't really curated anything, right? We haven't, except for papers in proceedings. And now, of course, like you said, you can, like everybody says, you can put it on, your papers in these databases, and of course you see 1 million people view it, but of course a lot of the times they're just in searches where you don't know if they're using them or not. But in this case, what we want to do is put them together in a way that we know that people aren't arguing for different models and theories for the same phenomenon. People don't like that. They don't show real problems in mainstream physics. So those kinds of things. And we all sort of been working in that area. So I think having this would be kind of a way to deal with that. So, okay, thanks so much. And look forward to your next Saturday. I know we'll be sending some more information out shortly about next Saturday, which is a more in-depth view and some new speakers talking about their work.
I think it's going to be good. Ian Cohen is going to present some interesting information, I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, James. Appreciate it. Thanks for
You're welcome, sir.
and your work too. Thank you. All right. That's very good. So, anyways, let's see if any more comments there. Again, today we've been talking about our book, the CNPS book, getting people's work into it, getting problems, experiments that show relativity wrong, problems with the Big Bang, philosophically, also problems with plate tectonics. A big one with plate tectonics, of course, is subduction. The subduction needed for the Earth to remain fixed radius doesn't exist. We're lucky if we can squeeze even 30% out of the expansion. So where's the other 70% going if we have no idea of where the subduction is? That's a problem. Antarctic is a big problem with subduction. Antarctic has only expansion around it with no subduction zones. This is known. It's really hard to think of the Earth not expanding, at least at the bottom, if all you have is expansion going on. So that's another one. So black holes, the way black holes are described, etc. So anyways, we're coming up to the end. Oh, we still got about 15 minutes, but Nick wants to come up. All right, Nick. Hey, Nick.
Hi. Yes. Excuse me. I think one challenge, or a big challenge, for the book being able to effectively communicate to the new audience. I've been following Andrew Castro's comments and statements and questions, and I think there's a mindset that is very common, and that is, hey, we have these physics professors who obviously are very intelligent and have great aptitude for abstract thinking and math manipulation. How can they not see that current thinking is wrong if logical arguments and experimental data is presented? And I think that's going to be, 100 years from now, and they're not going. Scientists look back on this era, they're not going to focus on special relativity and whatnot. They're saying they'll focus on why were physicists why were the professors not able to see what a high school student could see if he had not been thoroughly brainwashed. So that's a big challenge, because I think a lot of people are going to find that a major obstacle. Hey, if you have a logical idea and if you have experimental data, then why isn't physics academia? Why aren't the authorities convinced by it?
Yeah.
So that's
there's
a big challenge.
Yeah, that is a big challenge. This is what happens. If you go to the average person on the street and you say to them, Einstein's relativity is wrong, both special and general relativity, they're just not good systems. They don't work. Outside of coronas of suns, you can't calculate light bending, for instance, because it doesn't happen. So then they go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. So the people in the universities, they must look at the same thing and then find the problems. And then at that point, they either say, oh, we have to adjust our theories, or the data's wrong, or that we have to throw this out and start over. They really think, and this is why I think we are addressing this. In the very first part of the book, we're going to talk about this exact problem. That is
Right.
critical thinking and how we don't allow it anymore. And we're not the only ones suffering from it. There are a lot of other professions, biology, other professions in the university that are going through the same things. Other ones don't, like computer science, because it's just too easy for anybody to come up with a program, everybody use it. The good thing about computer science is you can come up with something, put it on your phone, and you can have 10 million people using it right away. It's really hard to argue that that's not a useful and good thing, even if it's done completely different. You can't do that with particle physics, right? Or particle physics. You can't make your collider in your home and then do something different. Where, like Eric Reeder does quantum mechanics experiments at home. You can do it. But I think, yeah, that's a big problem. So that's why I think in the very beginning of the book, we have to talk of that. When I tell people, and it's funny because I have friends who are skeptics and critical thinkers in politics. They realize when the American government says X, that we didn't blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, when we can look back 10 months ago and see Biden saying we'll take care of it if we have to. And then they say differently. These people are skeptics already. They understand that, like politicians, I call them like used car salesmen. They have to be able to be bought out easily. They have to be able to lie and be bought out. The same way with physics. People who, and I'm not the only one who said this. The other person who said this, and well, maybe not say because you don't want to ruin his reputation, but I had another person very prominent who's written books, has said people who go into theoretical physics are not the smartest people. They are not. They are people who are willing, like they say, to sell out. Nerds. I'm a nerd myself. I grew up as a nerd. People kind of picked on me as a nerd because, they claim, unquote, if it's true or not, smart guy. Well, when you're picked on like that, a lot of times the revenge of the nerds, this is one of my conclusions from my movie, is that when you're picked on all the time, you want to go back to your high school reunion 20 years later and say, everybody says, what are you doing, Fred, who used to beat me up? I work, I'm a truck driver and I do this. Oh, that's nice. What are you? I'm an astrophysicist at MIT. Now, oh my gosh, you just think, oh, great stuff. And you start talking about this, and literally the answer of the public says, well, I can't understand his logic, which doesn't make sense to me because I don't have the big enough brain. When in reality, what's the problem is what they're saying doesn't make sense because it's paradoxical, right? It's like saying, well, light's a wave and it's a particle. Of course, they're both. And the person's looking at you, well, what is it? Give me a physicality. Oh, well, it's both. We just know it's just strange. And so this whole idea that there's this elite class out there, I'm not the only one who says that people who go into theoretical physics are usually not the smartest people. The people who really want to do something, a lot of times they'll go running away screaming from theoretical physics, get into physics and work at NASA or SpaceX or some other place where they're really doing, or material science, where they're really doing physics, right? They're not doing this theoretical mumbo jumbo, which they don't believe. 98% of physicists who make a living at physics don't believe in the mumbo jumbo of theoretical physics. They just don't. If you ask them, they just say, wake me up when there's something different. So yeah, we have to get that. It's really hard to go against it. It's hard to say that the people that are in universities are not the brightest critical thinkers.
Well, even if they are the brightest, they are human, and they're subject to a whole lot of human foibles. And once you adopt a strongly held belief system and it becomes part of your identity, then it doesn't matter how smart you are. It takes a while.
Yeah, it is. And I think I don't know what's going to cross it, but I think people are disposed to that now. I think people realize that people in place. Here's another thing that's been coming up on the circuit. I was with Dennis McCarthy, one of my favorite guys, one of my favorite critical thinkers of all time, Dennis McCarthy, young guy. He's the one who did in 2008, he did a talk about the flora and fauna for Earth expansion. He's doing amazing work with Shakespeare. He's doing work showing that Shakespearean works. Shakespeare was a producer. He wasn't really a writer. What he did is he bought his plays from other people and reworked them. And he either reworked them or other people reworked them, right? And he's finding all these evidence with searching, because statistical searches on phrases you only found in Thomas North's work and Shakespeare. Really great guy. Gosh, I lost my point. What was I talking about? Holy cow. I'm sorry. What we were talking about people. Anyways.
Who have a strongly held belief system. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget, but there was something there with it.
It's human.
Yep, I'm human. Fallacy. Yeah. Here. Yeah. Anyways, it's interesting. Dennis McCarthy. He's a great critical thinker. I had some point. I lost it. So okay. Thank you so much, Nick. Any other comments before we go?
Well, going back to Andrew Castro, there's a physicist at CERN, and he used to think that time dilation was verified by relativity because he used a particular equation, but he didn't realize that the physical model was totally different because it requires one using the ECI frame to get the decay rate of particles. So if you use another frame, like relativity says you should be able to, you get
Right.
the wrong answer.
Right.
So it took a long while. He was where Andrew Castro is now, a total, a believer, strongly held belief, because that's what he was taught by the authorities, and they've claimed experimental data. But once you look a little bit deeper, you begin to see problems. There are a lot of actually relativists who have taken that first step to see that there is a problem. They still remain relativists, but they say, okay, but my modified version of relativity to fix that problem is what really should be taught. So there are a number of people who have taken that first step.
Yeah, and I think actually, I know that in the movement of trying to save special relativity with general relativity is in a lot of ways, a lot of an argument of the way people do it too, right?
Yeah.
They'll say that's a common argument from mainstream that, yeah, we know there's problems with special relativity. That's why we have general relativity, because special relativity is in 2D and the 3D solves it. And of course, it's a lot of word poetry, but in the end, yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Nick. I think we're heading and almost done in the time. I appreciate everybody's comments. We will be back next week, and then the week after that, we'll have another general discussion, or we'll have someone come on new people that I find. I actually have a couple that I'd like to bring on who we interviewed. Oh, I remember what I was supposed to say with Nick. I think I remember. I remember now. That was Dennis McCarthy was on the show called Demystifying Science, and they talked. The theme of that show became the illusion of the lone genius, the guy like Einstein who sits in his patent office, working away, and by himself comes up with this great idea, and that ideas work that way. It's the same way with Shakespeare. He was looked at in the same way. He was looked at. It's changing now, but he was looked at as the frustrated actor who really kind of didn't make it, but would sit and wrote these genius things about things he had never himself experienced, which we know now is true. Not true. That was another. When I was growing up, that was Shakespeare. Shakespeare no longer is that. Shakespeare was a producer, almost like Harvey Weinstein. Plays were done in the courts of very rich people, and the masses never got to see plays. What plays at the time of Shakespeare all of a sudden became in the round. The Shakespeare in the round, they think, oh, this is the great worst. No, plays were already being done for a long time amongst the rich, because they were only the rich could put them on. At the Shakespeare time, what made Shakespeare famous was at that time he became, he was aware that plays with the masses could be a big money-making thing. So he started purchasing things from Thomas North and other people. Shakespeareans now know that he acquired these things. They were all modified because you get it. It's like, I buy this person's book and I'm going to make a film now of it. There's a modification done. That's what he was. This idea that he was some, genius who was writing, and Shakespeare is the greatest author of all time. No, he didn't. He didn't know anything about Italian courts and traveling in Italy. He never did that himself. Those came from Thomas North. He adopted them. He made them more juicy. He made them just like people who do adaptions, screen adaptions. So this whole idea that these people sit around all by themselves and come up with these amazing things. Einstein didn't do it in isolation. As much as people say we can see that his work was influenced, we know kind of why he did his work when he did it. Whether he admits it or not, he had no. That's a different thing. But that was what Dennis. But I'd like to bring them demystifying. It's a couple really great critical thinkers. They go well beyond what we talk about. But I said, hey, can you guys come on and talk? And I know a number of people. John Reeder's been on there. I know Dennis McCarthy and other people. So we probably should get Nick. Nick, you should go on that. I'm going to recommend you go on that. Great. If you haven't checked it out, Demystifying Science YouTube channel. Great couple. Great critical thinkers. They are people critical thinking is what? Never accept what you're told. Be able to entertain an idea that you do not agree with and then really look into it. What happens to most is they'll put up their barriers. They'll say, no, I'm this. I've got my degree in this. I've done this. And therefore, I know these things are right. You can't tell me they're wrong. You can't tell me Karazani has a better way of doing it. And I'll tell you why it's not. And they go into looking at Karazani's work and how they're going to shoot it down with their one shot of the Death Star and bring it all tumbling down. Then they are like my father, who after 8 years of me making Einstein wrong, sits in the premiere of Einstein wrong. And he says to me, I don't know, Einstein, I don't know if he's wrong. I haven't looked into it myself. That is true critical thinking. So let's get ourselves on the way out, and we'll end it for today. Always remember, I'm Dave D. Hilster. I'm your critical thinking guru, trying to get you to the promised land of becoming a critical thinker. Ciao for now. Thanks for all the discussion. Hope you have a good weekend.